Hey, this is Josh Guin with Crossroads Natural Horsemanship. Welcome to Objective 1 of Path of the Horseman. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the basics of horsemanship. So everything from tying your knots, tying your halter on your horse, and going over all of the grooming tools, the catching your horse, all of the things that you're going to have to do before you get into the special things of horsemanship like ground training and riding. You're going to need to be able to do these things very well. The concepts that we're covering today are going to be the 6 signs of behavior, tying your halter and lead rope properly. We're going to go over grooming, all the different tools that we use for grooming, as well as the tools that we use for training the horse. And then finally, we're going to be going over catching the horse and how to stay safe around the horse. So let's get into this. Okay, in this objective, we're talking about the 6 signs of behavior, and this is just something I've come up with to be able to understand what horses are trying to say to you. It's not hard to do. You can look at a horse in a field, driving down the road, whatever. If you see a horse, you can pretty well know what they're thinking at any moment. They're very honest creatures. And we have just put together 6 things in their body language that will tell us what they're thinking. So they are the eyes, the ears, nose, mouth, the stance or the feet, and the tail. So to start off, we're going to start with the eyes. As you can see on Shire here, she is very relaxed. She looks like she has this sleepy look in her eyes, and that's really what we're looking for if we're looking for a calm horse. Now if we get into training horses, we probably don't want to have this kind of eye if we're looking for energy out of our horse. But for something like this where we're just standing around, just kind of hanging out together, this is the look that I'm wanting out of my horse. I want her to look sleepy or at least relaxed. Anytime you get into the look where you have a lot of white showing around the eyes, they're very wide, that's where you're going to start to get into a little bit more maybe anxiety or fear, maybe even anger. So that would be what we would consider a negative trait or a negative behavior. And some trainers would even say when they're blinking, they're thinking. And basically what that means is that whenever they are fearful, they're scared, they're worried about something, they're going to keep their eyes as wide as they can and keep it open as long as they can without blinking to receive as much visual information as possible. But whenever they get relaxed and they start coming down off of that fear, they'll start blinking those eyes to lubricate the eyes again. So that's considered a good sign in training. The next sign of behavior is going to be the ears. Right now you can see that Shire's ears are pointing back behind her. Now what that means is that she is just focusing one of her senses, which is the hearing, the sense of hearing, behind her because she knows what's going on in front of her. I'm here with her, she has this front covered, she could see the front of her. Remember, these are prey animals, so they're always looking out for what could cause problems with them. You know, in the wild, they're going to be dealing with predators that will kill them. So they're always going to be looking out in one way or another with all these signs and with all these senses, with the sound, the hearing, the sight, feel, all these things. They're going to be looking for what could cause trouble. So with the ears, she has her ears back right now. She's just keeping an ear out for what could potentially be behind her. All right, now if the ears were to lay down further than that and come all the way down to the neck, that's a completely different thing. So if the horse pins their ears all the way to the neck, then we're looking at probably a horse that's being aggressive. So if you ever see your horse do that, whether maybe you're grooming your horse or you're cinching up your saddle or something like that, your horse pins their ears at you, you really want to pay attention to that. And depending on your skill level, you either need to get to a safe place around that horse, which is usually right in front of the shoulder, or if you're more advanced as a trainer, you could probably handle that in some training methods. But we certainly don't want to leave that going too long because it is a dominant aggressive trait and we don't want to allow our horse to get into that kind of mode of thinking about us that way. All right, so that is the ears. The next sign of behavior is the nose. So the nose tells us a lot about a fear factor in the horse. Horses make this snorting sound with their nose. And you know, if you're out on the trail and you're riding along and your horse is maybe looking off to the left on the trail in the bushes and they start snorting, it sounds like an inward snort. It's not really, but if they start the snorting sound, you probably want to readjust yourself and make sure that you have a pretty good tight rein on that bridle and be able to handle your horse if it ends in a spook. The next sign of behavior in the 6 signs of behavior is the mouth. The mouth can tell us a lot about the horse, especially horses that are maybe nervous, scared, or anxious. There's this thing called licking and chewing, and it's whenever the horse will actually grind its teeth and kind of move its lips around. Now what's going on there is usually that is the horse coming off of kind of a, you could think of it as a high of energy, of negative energy, maybe that they were afraid of something. For instance, if you were training your horse to do something new and scary, a lot of times they'll tighten those lips up. And then whenever they realize that you're not trying to hurt them and the situation isn't going to be bad, they will start this licking and chewing. I'll give you an example of it. You can actually replicate this with your horse, and it's done simply like this. So if you just take your finger and put it in the corner and touch the lip, and then you come into the tongue, there it is right there. That looks good. So that's a replication of it, but if they do that on their own, that's always a good sign. That's something we're looking for. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're relaxed, but it does at least mean that they are becoming more relaxed and accepting of that scenario. Next sign of behavior is stance. It will include 2 things on the horse. One is the neck and the head, the position of the head, and the other part is it's going to include the back legs especially. And when you look at the back legs on a horse, if they're relaxed, a lot of times they will shift their weight. It's kind of like if I'm standing here and I just put all my weight on my right leg and kind of kick my left foot out in front of me. And we stand like that all the time. The objective of that is that we relax one leg, we rest a leg. And you know, I've always thought of it this way, you know, if I had a person in front of me that was threatening my life, I probably wouldn't be standing like that. I would have a more guarded stance, more braced, ready to run or fight. And it's the same with a horse. If they're nervous about something in life, in that scenario that's going on right at that moment, they're probably going to have a bracey stance. Their head is going to be high so that they could get their neck and all their vitals away from anything that could hurt them. And then they'll have maybe a stance with tight muscles that's ready to run or fight. Same as us. On the flip side of that though, we have a horse that may be relaxed. So you can see Shire here, she has that relaxed look. The common thought is that if the head is even or below the withers, that is usually going to be considered a relaxed horse. Of course, that has to be paired with many other factors of the 6 signs of behavior. But if they have that relaxed look on their face and the rest of their body, that is a good sign. Now, the other thing that you can look at to see a relaxed horse is the back leg. And if you look at, you know, once again, you have this, if we relax like this, a horse will do that kind of like this. Of course, my knee goes the opposite direction of a horse's hock, but it will be kind of like that. So those are the things that we look at on horses, on the stance, to understand what they're thinking at the moment. The last sign of the 6 signs of behavior is the tail. This time of the year, in the summer, we have a lot of flies here in Tennessee. If the horse is swishing its tail or thrashing its tail especially, as we're training the horse, it's probably trying to tell us that we have either gone too far in our training and maybe we were too assertive or too aggressive with them, or it could also mean that they are being dominant over us. Now, in the training process, you'll learn, especially in this curriculum, you'll learn how to differentiate those 2 things. But when you see a horse thrashing its tail, be aware that that could mean danger.